What's going on, guys? This is Martyrs Brigade 99 coming to you once again with another session of Dark Souls PvP. Alright guys, this should be a special treat, especially for you guys who are familiar with the Clash of the Titans video that I did probably about, I don't know, 2 months back, and it was back in April, I believe. Now, I no longer have that video on my channel, but to the extent that you remember, it was a series of bouts between myself and MCBiffStarr, right? And we were in Dark Root. We had, I don't know, probably about 15 bouts or so. And in that particular series, I proved to be victorious, right? Well, just so happened that good old MCBiffStarr and I are PSN friends, right? So, I'm just kind of chilling here, doing some good old PvP, and he sends me a message. He's basically like, hey, what's up, dude? You want to have some good old PvP? Of course I agree. A lot of times if I'm not really doing anything, not gathering any material for a video or anything, I'll accept, right? But oftentimes I have so many invitations that I just kind of don't do it because, due to me having this channel, there are a lot of people who, they kind of say, hey dude, let's PvP. And a lot of times when I have more than one request at a time, I just don't do either, right? Because I don't want to be partial to anyone. But this particular time, nothing was going on, right? So, remembering our last bout in Dark Root, I say, sure dude, why not? Right, so we're here in the painted world. Right, so even though I no longer have my original Clash of the Titans, this is going to be a video series that I'd like to call Clash of the Titans Volume 2. Right. Alright, now, one thing about MCBiffStarr, in the event that you guys are unfamiliar, he's a really good player. Right? He's pretty good. He's not one of those guys that you could just breeze through, right? He's pretty proficient in parries. Well, he really proved to be very proficient, right? And in addition to being proficient with parries, he's pretty unpredictable when it comes to certain type of attacks, right? Last time he used a dexterity build. This particular time, I'm assuming he's using a strength build, and you guys will see in a little bit, right? Now, these are basically a few battles that I had prior to meeting up with him, and then there will be a few others later on, with guys either invading or me invading in between the time of a battle between MCBiffStarr and I. Right. And I don't know, like I said before, I don't know if it's McBiffStarr or MC, I don't know what's going on, but either way it goes, you guys will see for yourself. Alright, so we're in the painted world in the Colosseum. Right, and this is a cool place. Oftentimes I invade here, but I've never really hit the Colosseum. Usually I'll just do random invasions, either as a Blade of the Dark Moon or a Dark Wraith. Right, but in the meantime, I'm going to try to tighten up these pesky invaders. Right, and even though I call them pesky, this is not to marginalize their skill. Right, because that was a great riposte right there. And that's one thing that a lot of guys have, that is a benefit over me, right? Because one thing that I see a lot of people, well, I can't say a lot, that some people are pretty good at is those blind parries, right? But in the Brigade, I'm not really into the blind parries. Now, there are some attacks that I can predict, but there's a lot of other attacks that I really don't just try to, kind of run up to you and hit the parry button. No. I like to hit you with the more predictable attacks or the setup parries. Right, so kudos to you guys who can go ahead and pop off off with that blind parry technique, because it really takes a little skill and a little luck, right? Because there's some times that you're assuming that your opponent is going to swing when they actually don't. Alright guys, here we go. And this will be round 1. Right? Now, even though I am saying round 1, am I really going to be sitting here and keeping track? No. But overall, as a matter of fact, I think he got the best of me. Overall, I mean, I feel like it. I mean, if he didn't get the best of me, I sure feel like he got the best of me. Right? Because he did fairly well. Alright, so as I said before, I'm pretty confident that he's using a strength build. And the reason why I say that is, right now, man, excuse me, it's pretty late. Right now he's using the club, right? And later on he'll be using the Man-Eater Greatsword. I think that's called, if I'm correct. So, you know, last time he was working with the dexterity weapons, this time he's working with the strength build. This was a pretty good series. Alright, now, one thing that I do not like, now this is another one of those weapons that kind of gets me caught up pretty often, right? And it's those ridiculous clubs. Now, why is that? Number one, a lot of people don't really use those clubs, right? Most people deal with either great swords or ultra great swords or katanas. Most people. And this is based upon my experience. But those clubs, I mean, they have a moveset that can really get you caught up, right? Because there's been plenty of times where I'm just kind of standing there waiting for an attack, and they kind of have this kind of lunge forward with the club attack, and it's, you know, it just kind of threw me off. And another thing about those large weapons, they kind of have that, you know, roll and slam the ground type attack that seems to have like a damage radius, I think, right? Because there's been times where it appears as though I'm not in the middle of the attack, but I'll still receive damage. So that's one thing, I don't know. I might have to go ahead and pull out a strength build, maybe try to practice up a little bit with that club, because, you know, a lot of times when I'm faced against it, I get caught up with it. Alright. So he's got the high-speed Fury Sword going on. Let me try to tighten him up real quick so I can get back to my duels. Alright. So the match is pretty much over. Alright, back to business. Okay, so there's a high-speed Man-Eater Greatsword. And you know what? That's a weapon that I don't really see a lot. Right? So, I don't know if it's that there are not a lot of strength builds, or to the extent that there are strength builds, that's just not a weapon of choice. Right? But it is an awesome alternative to the Claymore and the Bastard Sword in the event that you have a strength build, right? Because, you know, to the extent that you guys are kind of new to the game and you're kind of not really clear as to what weapon is a strength or what is a dexterity, a lot of times you can just look at the requirements, right? For example, now it may not be correct, I don't really have the wiki in front of me, but with regard to that Man-Eater Greatsword, I think the minimum requirements are 24 strength, and actually now that I'm thinking about it, I don't even know if it has a dexterity requirement. And since it does not have a dexterity requirement, and in addition to that, since it does not have a dexterity scaling, that's reason to believe that it is a strength weapon. Right. So a lot of times when you got, and this is basically for you new guys, you know, if you guys are kind of experienced, this is nothing but standard data. Um, the thing is, when you're looking at a weapon and you're checking out the scaling, right? Now, let's say, for example, you have a weapon that scales with both dexterity and strength, but the dexterity stat may be, let's just say, a B, right? And the strength stat, let's just say it's a D. That is basically a dexterity weapon, right? Because it gets the most benefit from an increased level of dexterity. Now, this is the same with all weapons, right? May it be strength, dexterity, magic, or faith-based, is all the same. Alright, now, one thing that I learned in this particular weapon is that ridiculous, well, I kind of forget the name because I never use it, but that kind of weapon that eats through shields, I might have to start using that, right? Because this guy kind of tightened me up a few times with that. It almost got to the point of getting irritating, right? And not irritating saying anything about what he's doing, just irritating that, geez, I'm getting stumped on by this ridiculous weapon, right? And it's pretty effective because to the extent, excuse me, that you're dealing with a guy who's holding the shield up, you know, maybe is on his, you know, last few bars of vitality, you know, let's just say that thing can just eat through a shield because it's natural, right? You look like you're about to die and you just want to erect that shield up because, you know, you don't want a chance dying, right? And that thing is pretty effective. Show tail, that's what it's called. So, I don't know. Thanks to this little high-speed series, I might have to start using that show tail. Alright. So we're back again. I think at this point either we're tied or he's up one. I can't really remember. I haven't really caught track. Alright. So he's trying to hit me with the, either that was one of those dead angle attempts, or he just so happened to run past me and swing. Now that was kind of predictable. Alright, so that was a blind parry there. And the reason why I say that was kind of predictable is because he, not only did he do that a few times, but a lot of people use that tactic with those great swords. You know, especially if they're using a Darkwood grain ring. What they'll do is they'll just kind of flip towards you and chop. Right? But the best tactic for that is to stay relatively close, and as soon as they flip, hit the parry button. Right? So I don't know if that was more so a blind parry, you know, because according to what I hear, a blind parry is just kind of like, you know, you're just kind of throwing some things out there, and you know, it's kind of half luck, half correct assumption, I guess. Alright, I gotta do something. Well, that wasn't really intentional. And you see, that's one thing that I really have to keep in mind when faced with a lot of guys, right? Since I do not use the grass personally, I have to keep in mind that there are some people who do use grass. And because they use grass, now, me personally, even if I did use grass, I mean, it's kind of like you need to use that thing at your own discretion, right? Because the way I see it is, if I don't use grass, then you're taking a risk and trying to use it. Now, am I speaking about this particular case? No. I'm just speaking about in general. And the reason why I say that is, there's been times when guys will invade and, you know, I'll see them hitting the grass, and I mean, they kind of get so arrogant to where they use it right next to me, right? And when I attack, they'll send me some kind of nasty gram saying, hey dude, You're dishonorable. Why would you attack me while I'm grassing? Well, you shouldn't be dependent on grass. That's how I look at it. And grass is something that you should use, as we said before, at your discretion. Right? You should always be situationally aware before you start popping off grass or buffing weapons or, hitting a tranquil walk of peace or whatever the tactic you may use. Alright, but once again, that was a mistake. Right? Because this is a duel and it's not a regular invasion. So I'll respect the fact that he uses his grass. Right? That's just something I have to keep in mind, though, because I never use grass. And because I never use it, if I kind of see you flipping backwards, I'm not thinking I'm really not thinking you're setting yourself up for grass usage, right? I'm just thinking you're flipping backwards. Alright, so one mistake with that mage, when you make the mistake of trying to pop off the sorcery too close to your opponent, they can kind of do the same thing I'm doing, right? Run at you at an angle so that they kind of don't get hit by the sorcery, and then after that just run in for a backstab. I mean, I don't know, using those sorceries, that's really that's really something risky, right? Especially if you're dealing with an aggressive player. Alright, so we're back at it. And he's using the high. See, if you guys notice, a lot of those guys use that tactic. So remember that, guys, when you're out there PvPing, you kind of catch somebody doing that flip attack. After you see them do it the first time, anytime you would notice them kind of flipping and rolling toward you, I would try to parry it. Just for the heck of it. I'm not saying you're going to get it all the time. That stinks. And actually, I somewhat evaded it because if you guys notice, I switched items and I started to go backwards, right? But the effort wasn't enough. Oh well, sometimes you just have to take one for the team. Alright, so we're back at it. Man, I'm pretty tired. Might have to tighten up part 2 tomorrow. Alright. Just go ahead, descend down the spiral steps. And he's at it again with that ridiculous club. I hate that weapon. Right. And actually, I can't really say I hate it. I just hate when other people use it. Right? Because to the extent that I start practicing with it and gain a reasonable level of proficiency, I might start using it. But that's one of the downsides. If you guys notice, he kind of overextended himself. Alright, that's kind of the downside to the strength weapons, right? Because though they are powerful, if you happen to miss an attack with those weapons, it kind of leaves you open for an attack or a counter attack. Alright. So he catches me with the high speed backstab there. And at this point I'm kinda worried. Right? Because I'm not below 25%, but I'm kinda out of there. Well, speaking of the devil, I am out of there. Well, you can't win them all. So here we go once again with this invader that seems to always be there at the most inconvenient time. But it's cool. He's just trying to gain some souls in humanity. And I think he just popped me off with a hornet. I don't know. That was a lot of HP. But even if he did, who cares? Right? It is what it is. We just have to do whatever we can to avoid being a victim of that particular weapon. Well, actually, not weapon, but the usage of the Horner ring with a weapon. So that was a nice martyr move right there. Kill myself just to get to him. Now, I've never really gotten off into this whip. Now, I've seen a lot of fancy dudes kind of popping off with the whip, but I've really never gotten off into it. Now, for you guys who are kind of, trying to learn about pairing and whatnot, make sure, right, when you are trying to attempt, I would say any weapon, not even a certain weapon, I'll just say any weapon, ensure that you are pretty close to your opponent, right? Because in the event that you are not too close, even if the timing is right, your parry attempt will fail, right? And this is whether you are using the blind parry technique or the setup parry technique. Alright. So this looks like this is pretty much the last match of the first video, right, of a series that I like to call Clash of the Titans Volume 2. Right? Alright, guys. So you guys can pretty much watch the rest of this last match. I hope you guys are enjoying the material so far. So stand by for part 2. Martyr's Brigade is